Hello and welcome to Sword Wargaming. In this video I'll be showing you how you can use a weathering pigment such as the Secret Weapon one here to get a muddy effect on your vehicles, as we can see on the side of this tiger here. So for this tutorial you will need a pigment, of course, such as the Secret Weapon one that I've got here, a vehicle in which to apply the pigment to, and I've got my tiger here, and also some sort of kind of solution in which to dilute the pigment in, and I'm using the glaze medium from Vallejo here. You can also use a different acrylic thinner, or you can use decal fix such as those available from Humbrol, but I'm going to be using this glaze medium here. You also need a couple of paintbrushes in which to apply it with, and a surface in which you can mix the pigment together. So I'll be discussing several different techniques. I've got examples of 3 on here. You can see on the mud on the tracks there, this kind of speckled mud there. Also the mud that I've got on the side skirts here, and also the mud that I've got inside the tracks there. So this is 3 different techniques, and I'll be discussing all 3 of those in the video. So let's get started. So the first method I'll be looking at is probably the most basic, and this just involves making a solution of the pigment. So I'm just going to open this up here, and using one of my brushes, just get a little bit of the dust of the pigment powder just on my surface here, this mixing palette that I've got. And then I'm going to bring in my glaze medium. I'm going to just add a small amount, adding to it as I go, and just mix it in. As you can see, this kind of creates a paste if you don't put enough of the medium in, so you need a little bit more in there. I want more of something a little bit more similar to a wash, slightly thicker than what you would see from an ink wash. There we go. So that's achieving a bit more of a better consistency there. Just a little bit more. There we go. So I've got this kind of wash kind of effect there. So just put this to one side, bring in the tank. And this is the side I've already done, so I'll just flip it over to the side that I haven't done already. And I'm going to be applying this to the skirt. So this represents mud that's been splashed up and has dried over time. So I'm just going to bring in the brush, and I'm just going to paint this on. You don't have to be too neat with this, you just have to be equally. Being less consistent is probably better, because mud doesn't fall consistently, so just adding little bits of dabs onto there. And then what I can do as well, if you bring your finger in, you can actually just dab it off as well, so you can just make some areas thinner than others. And also when it's like this, you can actually line it in these gaps where the dust and the mud would have gathered. Paint it in there, just put my fingers over the top. There we go. You can see it in the recesses there, and the same for this one over here. So the good thing about using this kind of solution is that you can actually wipe it off pretty easily, so I'm just going to add a little bit more darker down there. Now, it doesn't look like much at the moment, but what you'll be able to do afterwards, after it's dried, is you'll be able to like rub slightly off, or actually use some of the glaze medium to reactivate areas and kind of create streaking effects. So just smooth it out. There you go. So that's given us a muddy skirt there on the side of the tank. So that's the first technique, and it's probably the most simplest way. You can use it in most situations. The next step I'm going to be using less glaze medium to make a paste, and I'll be applying it on the tracks. So once again, I'm bringing in some of the powder here. I'm going to make a paste this time as opposed to a wash. I'm going to get some more powder onto my palette, and I don't need quite as much of the solution this time. Just a small amount will do. Wipe that excess off there. So I can actually probably get away with adding a little bit more pigment into that mix there. It's not quite as thick as I want it to be. Okay, so that's more of the kind of the paste consistency that we want there. So I'm going to be taking this and bringing in my tank again, and on the left here you can see that this tank track has been already been added the pigment to it, so I'm just going to do the same on this side. Just want to kind of push it into the gaps as much as you can to the recesses with the brush. And you will use quite a lot of the pigment doing it this way, but it does create a really nice clotted mud effect into the tracks. I won't do it all the way around for this, I'll just do an example on the front tracks there. So you want to get it in all of these treads, as many as you can. Then you can also wipe it off on the raised sections as the tracks are going through, parts of mud will be wiped off, but you want to make sure it's deep within these kind of crevices there. So once that's dried, it'll give us a really kind of nice clogged mud effect on the tracks, and that brings us to our final method of, and at least for this video, of using the weathering powders to create this kind of wet mud effect on the side of the treads there. So this final method will be slightly different from the ones we've looked at previously. As opposed to mixing the powder on a palette with a solution, we're going to be applying the powder directly into the tracks themselves, and it might seem a bit strange, but this is a great way of creating, keeping the lumps and the muddy effect. It's very similar to the paste kind of method, but it's just an alternate way of getting it. So I'm just going to place it onto the side here. It doesn't always work for some parts of the miniatures, but because I can create like a nice flat surface here, it works quite well. So I want to get it all in those tracks there, as you can see. Now, it might seem a bit strange doing this because at the moment, slight breeze and all this dust will disappear, but we'll be moving on in a second to the next. Okay, that should do for now. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring in our glaze medium on a palette, and we want to just apply a small amount just on the palette there, just so we can use that with our brush. So bring in my brush here, and we're going to dip it into the glaze medium, get plenty on there, and then I'm just going to dab it over the surface. Doesn't matter if you get a little bit onto your brush, but what we're mainly trying to do is maintain the kind of the dusty effect of it, and just use this glaze medium in order to like seal it into the wheels themselves. So just dabbing it on all the way over wherever we've got the dust. And then as this dries, it will retain the kind of the lumpy effect that we've got here, but then it will be fixed to the miniature as well. Okay, so once we've applied the weathering pigment to all of the areas and also gone over with the glaze medium, once this is dried, we'll get an effect similar to what we can see on the side here. And as you can see, as I've mentioned before, we've got these kind of lumpy, dusty effects of the weathering powder in the tracks. It looks like mud's got into all these crevices and grooves. So let's zoom out and kind of get a final summary for these techniques. So that was just a quick guide to using weathering pigments, such as the one available from Secret Weapon. And this one I went for the Dark Earth, mainly because it would contrast well against the kind of the yellowy camouflage skin that I've gone for on this tiger. If I was painting more of like a green camouflage, I'd probably go for one of their lighter colours, just so it contrasts nicely. But I've discussed 3 techniques to give you 3 different kind of effects on your tank. So I've got obviously the mud in the tracks there, so the mud in the wheels, the mud in the tracks, and also the dust on the side skirts there as well. So this is kind of the first time I've done a tutorial for these pigments, but if you would like to see more kind of weathering tutorials from me, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to accommodate that. So, as always, thanks for watching and goodbye. So once you've completed weathering your miniature with the pigments, one of the things you will need to do is seal it. Now you can use a spray varnish for this, and this is because once the solution that you've dissolved the pigment in dries, you get this kind of dusty effect on the surface, and this can kind of just wipe it off quite easily, which is not too bad because after it's dried you can then mess with it a little bit to get the desired effect, but it also means that over the time of using the miniature that eventually the pigment will wear off. So make sure you seal it before you actually finish your miniature so that you don't lose all of your hard work. So that was my quick guide to using weathering pigments on your miniatures to create muddy effects on tanks and vehicles. So I used the Secret Weapon pigments, the Dark Earth kind this time around. This is mainly because I was going for a lighter camo scheme on the tank and I wanted the mud to nicely contrast. If I was using a darker colour, I would probably have used a lighter, just so it contrasts nicely. So in this video I discussed the 3 techniques to get the kind of the dusty effect inside the wheels there, the paste effect inside the treads there to get like a clogged up mud effect, and also the dust effect on the side skirts there as well. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments, and I'll probably do more weathering tutorials as well, so be sure to subscribe as well to be kept up to date with all my latest hobby tutorials. As always, thanks for watching and goodbye.